It's here. Draft day. It's like a kid waking up on Christmas. We're here. We're ready. And if you're excited for the 2025 NFL Draft and your Houston Texans, go down and hit that thumbs up icon, because on today's show, my final mock draft, I have multiple. I have 3 parts to my final mock draft because I have 3 different scenarios I could see the Texans doing here on night 1 that will affect the rest of their draft strategy. Now, before I give you my final mock drafts, I want you to go in the comment section, shoot your shot, predict it right now. Who do you think and who do you want the Texans to draft in round 1? Maybe it's the same person. Maybe there's differences there. Who do you want the Texans to draft round 1? And maybe who do you think the Texans are going to draft round 1? No matter who they draft, if they trade up, if they don't, it's all going to be broken down here on Chat Sports. Our main channel will be going live for every single pick of the 2025 NFL Draft. So if you want live draft coverage where we get the picks before they're shown on TV, well, just click in. That link is going to be in the comment section and description of today's video. Go check out our main Chat Sports channel. Now, let's get into mock draft number 1. And my mock draft number 1 is with the Texans trading up to get an offensive lineman that they desperately need in this draft. Now, I did a video yesterday giving all the different trade-up scenarios, and the most popular one out of all the, trade-ups for the Texans was this offer from 49ers Report host Chase Sr. So I said, what the hell? I'll go with this for the Texans moving up to pick 11. We're going to give away our first-round pick in this year's draft, our third-round pick, 89, which is the lesser of our 2 third-round picks, and the second-round pick we got in the Washington trade for Jeremy Chuggs. Here is the draft haul for my first Texans mock draft for tonight. I have the trade with San Francisco. The Texans are trading up to get offensive lineman Kelvin Banks Jr. out of the University of Texas. I see Big Tex in the background giving me horns up. Round 2, Jaylin Noel, wide receiver from Iowa State. And round 3, rounding this out, Jared Wilson from Georgia. I have the last picks that the Texans made in this mock draft, but just going over the top 3 selections for this mock for your Houston Texans, they're moving up to get arguably one of the best tackles in this draft class. He's been getting a ton of hype the past couple days. Kelvin Banks Jr. could be a ascending player in this draft, going as early as 6 maybe to the Raiders. But if he falls to pick 11, I could see the Texans making the move to trade up and get their guy, somebody who they have not been shy about expressing their interest in Banks. They also went in and got Jaylin Noel, wide receiver from Iowa State. I really like this move as a round 3 guy. He's somebody who I think whatever team gets him in round 2 is going to get a steal, because I think he's fringe round 1 talent. He's electric on the field. I would love this as an option after you get Kelvin Banks. And then with the 3rd round selection, I went with Jared Wilson, offensive lineman from Georgia. He showed out at the combine. And if you watch him play, maybe he's a little undersized, but he's super athletic for his weight and size. I think he could really challenge for either that center or guard spot. And then to round out my final mock draft number 1 for the Texans with them trading up, I went D-line with Tim Smith from Alabama. We know D'Amico Ryans loves his Alabama prospects. I went with a tight end and Jaylin Conyers from Texas Tech. And one of my deep sleepers, Lan Larison, running back from UC Davis. If you don't know the name, look it up, because he's going to be, one of those guys in round 6, round 7. Whenever you hear his name, they're going to show the highlight tape and call him one of the sleepers of this draft class. Now, coming up, I have 2 more options for Houston in round 1 that might affect the rest of their draft strategy. Before I get into those, I couldn't do today's show if it wasn't for our amazing sponsor over at Game Time, the official ticketing partner here at Texans Today and at Chat Sports. How about those Rockets? Game 2 comeback. Producer Smitty, he's a Warriors guy, and he's shaking his head right now because Amin Thompson put Steph Curry in freaking clamps. And if you want to be there, Game 5 for your Houston Rockets, one place to get tickets and one place only is with our friends over at Game Time. You can save up to 60% on buying tickets for sports, concerts, comedy shows, theater, and more with our friends at Game Time. And they have zone deals, which means you pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, for an average savings on those tickets of 18%. You can see your seat view before you buy the ticket. I love the bowl view of, right there, you see the Toyota Center for Game 5 up against the Warriors. I love that view so you can kind of see where you're going to sit. And one of my other favorite things, if you look at the middle picture for the Houston Astros, it shows you whenever they're having certain days. Like it shows you when they're giving, bobbleheads away or whenever they're having a certain day at the park. You can see which days those are and kind of plan your schedule accordingly. So go check out our friends over at Game Time. They also have the Game Time picks, which filters out all the fluff and shows you the best deals. Download the app today, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It is game time. Now, let's go into mock draft number 2, where the Texans, they don't go offensive line round 1. They shock the world, and they go wide receiver in round 1. And I could see 2 guys really happening with this. Either Matthew Golden or the guy who I selected in my part 2 of my final mock draft, Emeka Egbuka at pick 25. C.J. Stroud's old teammate from Ohio State. They get him in round 1. And in this scenario, they go Emeka Egbuka in round 1, and then they double dip at O-line with their next 2 picks. Aireontae Ersery from Minnesota and Tate Ratledge from Georgia, and then you get Jordan Phillips, the defensive lineman from Maryland. I think it would be really hard for the Texans to pass up either a guy like Golden or Emeka Egbuka if he's sitting there at pick 25, just because the Texans want to build around C.J. Stroud. He is their future. He is the franchise. And if he really badly wants somebody like an Egbuka, are you going to listen to your QB1? I think the Texans might at least have to consider it if Stroud is pulling for a guy like Emeka. And then, like I said, if you do take a wide receiver, you got to double dip in O-line in round 2 and 3. So I went Aireontae Ersery right here from Minnesota, who I think he's a very undervalued tackle, could even sneak into the end of round 1 if a team loves him enough. And then I went with Tate Ratledge in round 3 with that first selection. I really like this kid out of Georgia as a day 1 plug-and-play guard. I think that really helps out your offensive line, even though you go wide receiver in round 1. And to round out this final mock draft, point 2, I went with defensive back Quincy Riley from Louisville. Raheim Rocket Sanders from South Carolina. I think he's another kind of sleeper guy. If you haven't heard of Raheim Rocket Sanders, a lot of great film, especially with his days at Arkansas. And then Caden Prieskorn, tight end from Ole Miss, who I've been told by our draft experts Tom Downey and Jack Sperry could be another sleeper at the tight end spot. And now, probably the most likely one for your Houston Texans in tonight's draft. Mock draft number 3, my final scenario that I could see the Texans going with is they go O-line in round 1. And I would be a fake, a phony, a liar if I didn't, with my round 1 selection for this final edition of the mock draft, go with my guy, Donovan Jackson. He is my guy. He's who I think, if he's on the clock at pick 25, the Texans don't move anywhere, he will be the selection for your Houston Texans in the 2025 NFL draft from Houston. Has all the leadership qualities that you need, that you want. He's an amazing guy to plug and play. He plays guard. He plays tackle. He has that grit. He has that toughness. He has that swarm mentality. He's a leader of men. I love Donovan Jackson in round 1 for your Houston Texans. You can plug and play him immediately right there at your left guard spot. Then in round 2, I went with Kyle Williams, somebody the Texans brought in for a top 30 visit. I love this kid out of Washington State. He can absolutely fly. I think that adds another weapon for C.J. Stroud. And then I go back and I get another offensive lineman, a tackle the Texans have been looking at in Boston College tackle Ozzy Trapilo. I really like his value as a day 2 tackle and maybe a reach here. But I went with Jaylin Blue, running back out of Texas with my last selection in round 3. The Texans want some boom. They want some pop from the backfield. Why not get a guy who has 4.3 speed in Jaylin Blue that can really complement somebody like a Joe Mixon in round 3 of this NFL draft, to take somebody who can help this offense out a little bit. With the final selections in this mock draft 3.0, I went with Deion Walker, big defensive lineman from Kentucky. He's been falling down draft boards, but he's still a massive human being with a lot of raw talents that can mold, especially on this defensive line the Texans have. I really like the value there in round 5. And with Marcus Harris, defensive back from Cal. He's somebody who gives you some special teams help and can also help out in the secondary a little bit, vie for one of those backup spots. And then one of my other sleepers, I told you Lan Larison, my other sleeper in this draft, Efton Chisholm III. You know who he reminds me of? Cooper Kupp. I know that's far-fetched. I know that's a long reach for me. I know. Call the foul. That's a reach right there. But I really like this kid out of Eastern Washington. He has a lot of special traits, and I think in the right system, especially with a guy like Nick Caley, he can become somewhat of a Cooper Kupp light. Now, those are my predictions. That's what I'm going to ride or die with for tonight's 2025 NFL Draft. If you agree with me, if you disagree, hit me up on Twitter at Jeremy Chuggs. And as always, go down and hit that subscribe button for daily Texans videos all year long during the draft. Free agency, offseason, in-season, everything in between. We got you covered. Your one-stop shop for Texans news and rumors.